From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm the original Demigorgon, also known as Jamie Hickson. That, my man, is Mr. Eric Rosen.
Yes, and I am a not-so-happy Jet fan.
Well, how could you be, especially after yesterday? We're very happy that you could join us for a really interesting evening of sports talk, ladies and gentlemen. Kenny Graham is on the other side of the glass, but he's double dipping right now because not only does he have to be here, he also has to be taking care of stuff next door because our good friend John Contaduca is going to be starting the Staten Island Soccer Report in the next few minutes. So
tune in 7:30.
Yeah, so needless to say, he's going to be doing a little running around from one studio to another. But in the meantime, we've got you guys over here. And as always, you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Snapchat. We have so much stuff to discuss. Since we have the backdrop of Yankee Stadium and the Yankees are going to be playing the Astros within the next hour, let's start with the Yankees first. Specifically, how they've really defied a lot of odds, to be honest with you. Because when you think about it, everybody said that this was going to be a rebuilding season for them. What with all of the younger players and probably maybe even going with more of a youth movement next season. But now they're in a 2-0 hole to the Astros in the league championship series. No one thought that they would even get this far, much less make the wild card round. But they beat Minnesota. They come from 2-0 down to beat Cleveland, and here they are. But at the same time, as pleased as I am with the progress that they've made this season, They got to start hitting. They've got to start hitting because, quite frankly, one run in 2 games is not going to cut it with them, especially with that Astros batting order being the way it has been.
What was crazy about their journey this year, yeah, as you mentioned, everybody said that this was going to be a rebuilding season. But then you had Aaron Judge having one of the best rookie seasons, definitely the AL Rookie of the Year winner for sure, 52 home runs, over 100 RBIs on the year, and a near, I think, over 300 batting average. On top of all that, you have Gary Sanchez having another great power hitting season, probably one of the best catchers at power hitting catchers at his position. And then you have Greg Bird, who just came off his the disabled list, really coming in at the last moment. Then the great trade that Brian Cashman made to get Todd Frazier, Kane Lee, and David Robertson all in one fell swoop from the Chicago White Sox. Thought that was brilliant right there.
Yeah.
Because at least you provide some veteran presence in the batting order right there.
And then there was the Sonny Gray deal, which at the time was a real steal for them because all the Yankees had to give up was a group of prospects. But ever since he started putting on the pinstripes, Sonny Gray has been
a disappointment.
Yeah, he's been a major disappointment. I mean, granted, he has not gotten the best run support, but at the same time, you would expect that a guy like him, who had really good seasons in Oakland, would do the same thing in pinstripes, and it has just not happened yet.
It's got to be the stress of playing in New York, though.
It shouldn't have to be the stress of playing in New York because superstars like him should be able to put up with the stress of playing anywhere in a tight situation.
But there are some players, if you know, like Zach Greinke, for instance, when they were considering getting him, he wouldn't be able to – he has a nervous condition or something like that where he could not play in a city like New York. You know, that's why he was relegated to a lot of small cities where he played in his career, or places that, you know, don't have as much of the media scrutiny.
Yet somehow he was able to pitch in L.A. for a couple of years before he went over to Phoenix.
I know.
Which is not necessarily a teeny-tiny market. Phoenix is a pretty respectable market.
And L.A. is basically the second biggest sports market after New York.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there are some players, you know, who are not able to play under the bright lights. But anyway, the fact is the Yankees won 91 games this year with a lot of the youth players that they had and some of the veteran guys like Brett Gardner, who had a great slugging percentage on the season. And we saw in the second half after the DL stint that CeCe had, coming back. At one point, he was 5-0 after his stint on the DL, and we're and Aaron Hicks coming out of the DL finally. So all the players are healthy at this time and place. But how they got here? So they played the Minnesota Twins in the AL wildcard game. They gave up 3 runs in the top of the first inning for Luis Severino.
And Luis Severino wound up getting pulled after a third of an inning. And what happens?
Gregorius.
The bottom half of that inning, Didi Gregorius hits a home run.
A 3-run homer.
3-run home run. Brett Gardner adds a home run there. And the next thing you know, it was a collective effort from the bullpen that wound up leading them into the league into the division series.
They won 8-4. Yeah.
Going up against an Indians team who everybody thought for sure was going to repeat as the American League champions. And they almost did, too, because you look at what happened in Game 2 of that series with that controversial non-replay that Joe Girardi decided, was basically ran out of time to do, where the batter was not even hit. It turned out that the barrel of the bat wound up getting hit by the ball, and it should have been strike 3. But what happens? A grand slam, a game-tying home run, and then a game-winning double in extra innings gives the Indians the win. Everybody wrote the Yankees off. And then what happened?
Yeah, Austin Jackson drew the leadoff walk in that game, remember?
Pitching was what led the Yankees in the last 3 games of that series.
Well, Greg Bird in Game 3 getting the game-winning home run, and Tanaka having...
Masahiro Tanaka was outstanding.
The 5-out save by
Luis
Chapman.
Severino was outstanding.
In
And even though he kind of got shortchanged in Game 5, CeCe Sabathia was outstanding for 4 1/3 innings before the Indians wound up catching up to him.
What about Judge?
Catching up to him.
Game 4 getting the 2-run double as well. Finally getting a hit, because at that point, Judge couldn't buy a hit in this series up until that point.
And then David Robertson and Aroldis Chapman wound up combining for 4 2/3 shutout innings of ball to help the Yankees win that series. And they wind up going into the Houston series with a lot of momentum. Houston, of course, just outclassed the Red Sox in 3 out of the 4 games in this one. Bottom line, it was all pitching for the Astros in that series.
How about
it was
Altuve in the first game, 3 home runs?
And it was also Dallas Keuchel and Justin Verlander just owning the Red Sox lineup in the first couple of games. And then after Boston comes from behind to win
Game 3,
Game 4 becomes basically a collective effort in which the Astros get one big hit after another, and they wind up winning that series.
And Verlander, first time ever in his career, came on relief. Who would have thought we'd seen it? And they
gave up
5-4.
a game-tying home run, but that was pretty much academic right there.
But
to the National
Beltran
League,
got a big hit in that game.
But to the National League, the Dodgers completely made work of the Diamondbacks as if they were not even there.
Oh,
the
the
Diamondbacks, of course, wound up beating the Rockies in that wild card game. But then the Dodgers made quick work of the D-backs thanks to a combination of really clutch hitting and really solid pitching in Game 3.
What about Justin Turner in Game 1? He hits a 3-run homer, and they win 9-5. Game 2, Yasiel Puig, a bloop single, 3 hits, and drove in 2 runs. Logan Forsythe, 3 hits, and Kenley Jansen, a 5-out save, and they win 8-5. And then Game 3, Cody Bellinger gets a big home run, driving 2 runs, and Yu Darvish having a great performance. They win 3-1.
And then in that other series, Cubs and Nationals,
5 games.
Once again, the Washington Nationals show that they are a major tease when it comes to the postseason. Ever since they relocated to D.C. from Montreal, the Nationals have not won a playoff series. They've lost all 4 of the playoff series, all division series.
Actually, now it's 5.
Now it's 5.
Yeah.
2012, 2014, 2016, 2017. They've lost every single one of the division series that they have played in.
And Kyle
since
Hendricks
moving from Montreal.
Game 1, Hendricks outpitched Strasburg, and they won 3-0, including Brian Rizzo's RBI hits. And then Harper has a great performance with Zimmerman. They win 6-3 for the Nationals, tie the series up, including Harper's tying 2-run homer in the 8th. Then Game 3 comes. The Cubs rally past Max Scherzer 2-1. Anthony Rizzo, a blooping, tie-breaking single into left field with 2 outs in the 8th inning.
And what happens in Game 4? Steven Strasburg, who didn't really want to pitch Game 4 because he was suffering from an illness, finally caves in
7 dominant
and
innings.
pitches 7 shutout innings to get the victory.
And Michael Taylor, the grand slam homer. And then came Game 5.
And then came Game 5, where it looked like the Nationals finally had victory and Lady Luck on their side. But what happens?
Addison Russell.
Once again, Addison Russell comes up big. The Cubs get some clutch hits in the second half of Game 5, and they wind up coming away with the victory. So now you have the top 3 markets in Major League Baseball, New York, L.A., and Chicago, in the League Championship Series. And both of them are 2-0.
Let's start with the ALCS. The Yankees going to Game 1. This is the game where in the 5th inning, that's where, honestly, the game got decided. This was the situation. Top of the 5th, you got runners on first and second. Judge comes up, hits a nice single to the left field side. Greg Bird is leading off from second, but he decides to run a little around third base bag and not go full around the third base bag. And he is a step slow, ends up getting tagged out by Marlon Gonzalez's throw. So, unfortunately, had he not got tagged out at home plate in the top of the 5th in Game 1, they could have had Sanchez coming with 2 outs, bases loaded, and they could have really made something, honestly.
Well, that wasn't the only difference in the game. The difference in the game, actually, the difference in the first 2 games have been Justin Verlander and Dallas Keuchel, not necessarily in that order, owning the Yankees in this one to the tune of 1 run allowed in 18 innings.
And what about 7 dominant innings for Dallas Keuchel? 10 strikeouts, only giving up 4 hits. He's had a career record. Again, remember, 2015, the AL wildcard, he dominated them in 3-0 at Yankee Stadium.
And then Game 2, Justin Verlander went the distance, and the next thing we know, there's a what turned out to be the game winning RBI double on a play where, quite frankly, if Gary Sanchez had just caught the ball at the plate, then Jose Altuve would have been out by 15 feet.
Altuve, this is the guy who, honestly, and we can all agree on this, he is the MVP so far, hitting over 525 already in this postseason. He's having a great postseason. But what about the Dodgers? Game 1 against the Cubs, Yasiel Puig. Chris Taylor hits a tie-breaking homer in the 6th inning. Puig adding a homer and an RBI double. And Charlie Culberson drove in the tying run, scoring another while replacing Corey Seager, who unfortunately is injured. But the Dodgers end up being the Cubs 5-2, and then came last night.
Justin Turner once again, 3-run home run.
You know what? It was the 29th anniversary of the Kirk Gibson home run.
Irony? Anybody?
And this is a guy who grew up a Dodger fan.
Yeah.
He's from California, actually,
Yeah.
Northern Cal. And yet this guy, the redheaded phenom, who the Mets used to have in their team and did nothing and never utilized him. Well, guess what? L.A. utilized him pretty well. And, in fact, he got the game-winning walk-off 3-run homer. Isn't that something right there?
So now the Dodgers and the Astros lead their respective series 2-0. Game 3 of Astros-Yankees is tonight. CC Sabathia is pitching. And to be quite honest with you, this is the game where he really has to give them more length than he has before. Because so far he's pitched 9 2/3 innings combined in his starts. It's critical that not only does he give the Yankees some length, but he has to do something to keep that Astros batting order at bay. Because even though the Astros have scored only 6 runs in the first 2 games,
4 runs.
It's the 4 runs in the first 2 games. It's the manner of those runs that they've been able to have this lead so far.
Yeah, it's crazy. 2-1 victories in both games, but you have to give it up to at least the bullpen for the Yankees not giving up any runs in these 2 games. But the thing is, it has to come from the offense. They got to be. They're going up tonight against Charlie Morton. That's the start for the Astros. So if there's any night that the Yankees got to take advantage, it's tonight against Morton. And the fact that they are at home and they have not lost a single playoff game at home so far. They're 3-0 at home, including the division.
Time for them to take advantage of some home cooking against the quote-unquote weak link of the Astros starting five.
That's for sure. And not only that, we got to see Judge and Sanchez. Sanchez has not had a single hit so far in this series. He's got to
Aaron Judge has been a strikeout waiting to happen. I mean, I know he's had a propensity for drawing walks, but sometimes I wonder exactly what he's looking at because he's been swinging at quite a few pitches that have been really off speed and really baffling him.
Or as my dad likes to call them, lollipop pitches. That these breaking balls that honestly don't even go for it. If he just wouldn't swing that, he probably would be walked plenty of times.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not in his DNA for Aaron Judge. He wants to get those big hits, and he wants to get them now. He's young still. He's still, he still is learning at times the ways and intricacies of the game, including being in the postseason. This is his first time, and for a lot of these players, it's their first postseason rodeo. So it's just, I guess sometimes the moment can get to them, but I think when it comes to them being down and out, look at them, the AL wild card, being down 2-0 against the Indians, they know how to overcome perseverance.
I hope that they don't turn it into a habit, though, because eventually this is going to catch up to them. And after Game 3, Sonny Gray is going to start Game 4, and he's only made one postseason start this month.
Is it going to be a 4 o'clock or is it going to be at 8 o'clock? Because I know tomorrow's Game 3 of the NLDS, so I don't know. Because they did on Saturday, the Yankees actually played a 4 o'clock. It was the first late afternoon game they've played in the postseason so far. So
my guess is that they turn this into an 8 o'clock game.
They should honestly make that an 8 o'clock game and have the other game be a 4 o'clock in Chicago, especially for those Cubs fans.
Speaking of Chicago, games 3 and 4 are where they're going to have. Chicago is going to be where they're going to have games 3 and 4 of the National League Championship Series.
You know what I like about Wrigley Field? Besides the fact that it represents, the old nostalgia of what baseball parks were like.
Mm-hmm.
The ivy in the outfield is always the greatest part. And I like what they do in the apartment buildings surrounding Wrigley Field. They have seats on the roof that you can see the game from.
That's right.
So there are a lot of things special about Chicago. And Super Dogs. If you ever are in Chicago and you want a hot dog, you go to a Super Dog.
Mm-hmm. And if you're ever in Los Angeles and you want to take in a game at Dodger Stadium, always order the ever-popular Dodger Dogs.
Yes, and if you're at Yankee Stadium, don't get
sushi, pizza, those big gargantuan turkey legs that are the size of this table, which run about $10.
And they got barbecue too as well at Yankee Stadium. Oh my God, I am so hungry. They got like a Brother Jimmy stand actually there. And you know what's also great? If you're in Houston, you gotta get yourself some chimichangas in there or empanadas. Mm-hmm. Get some good Mexican Tex-Mex if you're ever in Houston. Or soul food. There's a great soul food restaurant there that's famous. Makes great chicken there.
Yep.
Awesome. I'm really hungry right now. I know we turned baseball into a culinary feature.
Well, that's interesting because in each major league stadium, they have their own unique kind of food that they sell at each of the ballparks. Of course, at Yankee Stadium, there's the gargantuan turkey legs and the popcorn and the peanuts and the pizza and Now they're selling sushi over at the stadium.
I've actually had some of the sushi. It's not too bad. They really do make some. But anyway, as for the games themselves, for both these teams, if the Cubs want to win, you got to limit the amount of hits given up to, say, guys like Puig and Turner now.
Yeah.
And we really got to see some more hitting from Rizzo and Russell. Like, this lineup really has to get its act together. Mm-hmm. And the pitching, too, especially John Lackey was terrible going late yesterday, giving up that homer and not putting Wade Davis in when they should have. Mm-hmm. That was a big mistake right there on Joe Maddon's part. They got to correct that going tomorrow night. As for the Dodgers, just keep hitting the ball, keep getting to the pitchers and force them to have to use weight early and really outstretch them.
As far as Astros Yankees, for the Astros, it's simple. Keep riding that starting pitching. The more length they give them, the more run support they'll probably get. I will bet you 1 run or 2 runs, like what happened in each of the first 2 games, is going to be all that's needed for the Astros to win a game. Their pitching is that great. With Verlander, who they literally traded for 2 seconds before the non-waiver deadline, him being the game 1 starter, the game 2 starter rather, and dominating, and Dallas Keuchel owning them in game 1. Let's see if Charlie Morton and whoever the game 4 starter is can ride whatever magic that the other 2 had in games 3 and 4. As for the Yankees, start scoring some runs, please. It's not that hard.
Hits.
And also, see if you can get some of that pitching magic that they got in the last 3 games of the Cleveland series as well. And start grinding out some at-bats, too. You talk about hitting, and you talk about scoring runs, they need to grind out at-bats the way they did against the Indians in the last 3 games of that series, because if not, then this is going to be a really short series.
Especially the way Brett Gardner in Game 5, the way he was able to get the closer to have to go to, I think it was 13 pitches in 1 inning.
And what happened? A big base hit, which drove in 1 run, and then an error scored another run.
And that pretty much changed the game right there, because at the time the Yankees had just a 3-2 lead, and they go in to the bottom of the 9th up 5-2, and Chapman is able to get the final 3 outs that he needs to help his team get to the ALCS. So Chapman, unfortunately with that single on Saturday, now things are going to have to really change around for the Yankees to win. And as for the Astros, Ken Giles, I like the bullpen they have.
Yeah, Ken Giles is the closer, and it hasn't been just Keuchel and Verlander either. It's been Morton. It's been the rest of their bullpen.
McCullers.
Lance McCullers Jr. has, who's the son of the one-time Yankee of the same name, has been outstanding this season.
And we may see plenty of him tonight. I wouldn't be shocked if he comes out in the bullpen or something like that, doing some action tonight.
Now, as far as what else is going on in baseball, just as quickly as the Red Sox playoff run ended, so did John Farrell's job, because he wound up getting fired the day after they lost to the Astros. Interesting, considering he took them to the playoffs 3 times in 5 years.
And won a World Series with them.
And won a championship with them.
In 2013, which was 4 years ago. So the fact that they're in such a hurry to get rid of him when, this team, was, I think it's a mistake, because he really is good with those players.
There's got to be something to his firing than just the end of, or the way the end of the season ended, because he really did a good job with this team.
Especially with the hitters they had, like Mookie. So they need somebody who's going to come in to work around with these rookies like Andrew Benintendi and Mookie Betts. Whoever comes is coming into a very good situation.
Yeah. They're going to have a really good thing going once they take that job. Speaking of which, I already heard that the Mets want to interview the one-time Met, Alex Cora, for the manager's job.
Oh, my goodness.
Don't kid yourself. Alex Cora has been touted to be a really good manager down the road. If I'm not mistaken, he's, I think, the bench coach or the hitting coach most recently with the Diamondbacks. And his brother Joey Cora is also in the game as a coach. I also heard that maybe he could be suitable for the Red Sox job, because he would be really great in that clubhouse.
Well, again, like I said, whoever gets the Red Sox job, mention the young rookies, and with Xander Bogaerts and the bullpen, right now situation that they have too, and with the starting rotation, you are walking. Drew Pomeranz and David Price, I think you're walking into a heck of a situation as a manager with a lot of good offensive and defensive weapons. So right there, whoever gets this job, there's going to be a lot of pressure too, especially with Red Sox. They're a huge sports market as well, like Chicago and LA and New York.
Yeah.
I think they're like the 4th or the 5th biggest sports market in the country.
My guess is that they're the 4th biggest sports market. after New York, LA, and Chicago. Then you've got Philly. Then you've got Houston. Then I think you have Miami and Phoenix, and I think Detroit as well.
And even Pittsburgh is not too bad either of a sports market too.
Although in Beantown, one thing runs the show over there, and that's the Red Sox. After that, the Patriots are a close second. Then the Celtics, and then the Bruins.
You know what? I always say the Patriots actually run a lot of things too now, especially with the amount of But it's a championship city. You think about the recent championships. They've won more championships in the 21st century than New York has combined. So if you look at that, especially with their Celtics, the Patriots, the Bruins even, winning the Stanley Cup in 2011. When was the last time New York won a Stanley Cup? 1994?
Yeah, 1994. And, of course, the last time there was a Stanley Cup won in the tri-state area was the Devils.
In 2001, I believe.
2003.
Or 2003, yeah.
When they beat the Ducks. Speaking of hockey, the season started just recently, and the Devils have gotten off to a really quick start. Just over the weekend, they beat the Rangers, edged the Rangers to be exact, and now the Devils have a 4-1 record with Nico Hischier, their number 1 draft pick, and a slew of young guys with so much potential leading the way for them.
Well, it looks like things are working out well for the Devils. As for the Ranger, things have
They've
gone
lost
down
4
south.
of their first 5 games, and this is after they made that big free agent signing of Kevin Shattenkirk.
So it looks like it's just the scoring is just not there right now, or lacking at times. And
as for the Islanders, they did a California road trip recently. They won in San Jose, but then just last night lost to the Kings.
So overall, in the New York area, it's really the Trice area. It's really the Devils that are the king of the crop right now. The Rangers, they've had slow starts at times, in the past, but they've always found a way to come back as well. It's still a relatively young season, and I think the Rangers will make that push again. They will.
They better hope so. They're not looking particularly good right now. They're having major problems scoring goals, and I hate to say this, but Henrik Lundqvist is looking a little creaky in goal right now. It's gotten to the point where the backup, Andrei Pavelek, has been taking a couple of starts in between the pipes. Now, guess what is going to be starting tomorrow? Hockey season just recently got started.
But basketball is coming back.
Basketball is coming back as of tomorrow with a really big doubleheader. I think Celtics Cavaliers and Rockets Warriors.
What I love about that, especially the first one you mentioned, Celtics Cavaliers, that is the first match, between LeBron James and his former teammate.
There's some question about LeBron because he sprained his ankle in the preseason, and he missed a lot of preseason games. There's question about whether he's even going to be able to suit up and play tomorrow night. But at the same time, this is one long 82-game season, a long 82-game season which has seen a plethora of changes. Kyrie Irving going to the Celtics along with Gordon Hayward. Now who's on the Cavaliers? Dwayne Wade and Derrick Rose and Jay Crowder. You think LeBron James is going to be looking forward to not only working with one of his best friends, but working with a couple of guys who have really been around the block quite a few times in their short careers.
So it's no longer the youth movement with this team. They sort of become the AARP of basketball teams. But then again, hey, I shouldn't make comments like that because with age definitely comes wisdom. And these guys have plenty of wisdom to provide a lot of the younger players in this team. And, of course, when you still have LeBron at the helm of your franchise, you're always going to go places.
And with a lot of the really best players leaving the Eastern Conference to go out west, that kind of sort of changes things in the East because when you think about it, after the Celtics and the Cavaliers, who would you say would be number 3 until 8 in the playoff picture for the Eastern Conference?
Right now,
the Wizards maybe?
I think the Pacers are really going to surprise people.
You think so?
I think they're going to be in the 7 or 8 spot. Then you have the Hawks, right? The Atlanta Hawks right there that are really going to surprise some people too. I think the Miami Heat are going to be.
Miami's got some really good young players. Justice Winslow, for one, has been outstanding for them.
So I think there's going to be several teams, but again,
let's see what Hassan Whiteside does for the Heat now that he's got that big fat contract that he signed over the summer. There's also the matter of the Raptors. The Raptors, fortunately for them, have back DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, both of whom got big contracts with the Raptors. There's also the Wizards, John Wall, Bradley Beal, a really dangerous duo that other teams have to be afraid of. After those 4 teams, Milwaukee maybe? Milwaukee's got some pretty decent young players. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jabari Parker, when he's got his good health with him. And, of course, as far as the rest of the East, Charlotte possibly. They have a pretty decent backcourt. I think Detroit might surprise some people because they brought in a couple of guys who can really help them out. They made the trade to get Avery Bradley.
But really, if you're going to talk about the power of the NBA, it's not in the East. It's the West. And you look at the switch that has taken place. You have the top teams like the Warriors.
The Warriors, who didn't really make that many changes, yet are still
the dominant
powerful.
franchise.
Then there's the Rockets, who now have Chris Paul to go alongside James Harden in the backcourt. Oklahoma City now has their own big 3.
You got
Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Carmelo Anthony.
I think the trade to get Paul George, who was this close to going to L.A. to the Lakers, but the L.A. Lakers, they got a good youth movement going on. Look for them. And you know what? Even the Brooklyn Nets here can make some noise, too, with D'Angelo Russell, who was acquired.
Getting D'Angelo Russell was a brilliant trade that the Nets made. And all they had to sacrifice was Brook Lopez, who I think can still be a major player now that he's going to be the starting center on the Lakers, and a draft pick. You know, let's talk a little bit further about...
What about Lonzo Ball now?
Lonzo Ball... Julius Randle, who, by the way, could be a free agent next summer. Jordan Clarkson, Brandon Ingram, Larry Nance Jr., Kyle Kuzma, who a lot of people don't talk about because he was a late first-round draft pick who wound up getting traded over to the Lakers. Kyle Kuzma could be the X factor for whatever hopes the Lakers have this season. He had a terrific summer, had a really, really good preseason. Something tells me that Lonzo Ball and Kyle Kuzma could be the guys that the Lakers go to in order to surprise some people this season.
Just on an unrelated note, WNBA, congratulations to the Minnesota Lynx defeating the LA Sparks for their 4th championship in 7 years. Very happy for that franchise. Now,
as far as the rest of the Western Conference, we mentioned Golden State and Houston and Oklahoma City. No one is mentioning San Antonio. They're still dangerous. Plus, LaMarcus Aldridge got a brand new contract, 3 years, $72 million. So I guess you could forget about any trade rumors that are going to be involving him. Plus, Manu Ginobili has decided to come back for 1 more year.
Right.
And you combine him with Tony Parker and Aldridge and the plethora of young players that they have coming off the bench, San Antonio is still going to be dangerous.
What about Aldridge's former team, the Portland Trailblazers?
C.J. McCollum and Damian Lillard, always dangerous. Those two can carry the Blazers about as far as they can. No one's mentioning the Clippers, who traded away Chris Paul. They still got back a really good shooter, Danilo Gallinari. So now they've got so much height on their front line with Gallinari and Blake Griffin when he has his good health, and DeAndre Jordan as well.
Which team do you say is the best defense in all of the West?
By far, it's Golden State. 1 through 5 in their starting lineup. I worry about them in the middle, though, because I think they might be a little soft in the middle. But 1, 2, 3, and 4, I think they can lock down any defender out west.
And also, they have they're a great 3-point shooting team as well. In this day and age, your 4 and 5 has to be a 3-point shooter too. It's not just the 1 and 2 guys in the backcourt.
Gone are the days when you used to throw the ball down the middle and let the center do his work. And they're now replaced by the days when the backcourts, not just one particular guard, but the backcourts or a stretch 3 or even a stretch 4 can open up the game for their team.
Like LeBron, who is the quintessential stretch 4 right there. He can shoot threes, can defend inside, can shoot layups, can do everything that you need. And there are certain other places. What about in New Orleans right now with the Brow?
It's interesting because they
And
had a rather
DeMarcus
quiet
Cousins.
they had a quiet off season, although they re-signed Drew Holiday, which I thought was important because, quite frankly, he's their best hint of stability in the backcourt right now. The idea of a big three of their own, of Holiday and Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins, sounds dangerous. But after that, what really do they have?
That's pretty much it. That's all they pretty much offer.
Could they challenge for a playoff spot right now? Because if they have their good health in order, that was one thing that killed the Pelicans last year. Drew Holiday missed a lot of time because he was hurt.
I can't even stand that name, the New Orleans Pelicans.
Keep in mind, the Pelican is the state bird of Louisiana, so they wanted something that would represent their city and their state.
Oh, forget it. Why don't they just call themselves the New Orleans Mardi Gras and just have beads being thrown to this?
How about the Voodoo, like their former Arena League team?
Oh, like in the French Quarter,
Yeah.
Yeah, Voodoo Night, or the New Orleans Santeria, or the New Orleans... Well, I'm not going to say that because that's not nice. But you know what? How about, the New Orleans Bourbon Street Boys?
Or how about the Bourbons?
That wouldn't be bad. You know what? I think a lot of people would like that idea. Free bourbon. No, I don't think that will take place. But nonetheless, they play at the Juice Center? The
Smoothie King Center.
The Smoothie King Center. Of all places to call a stadium, that's just insulting right there.
Well, it could be worse.
Oh, please, do tell.
Well, in years past, we had places that were called the Gaylord Entertainment Center, which is now known as Bridgestone Arena. That's in Nashville.
I wouldn't have any issues
That's
with that.
one example right there. But continuing on with the NBA season, let's discuss our local teams a little bit more at length because we mentioned the Brooklyn Nets.
Let's not discuss the Knicks. Please, not the Knicks.
We mentioned the Brooklyn Nets and how they made the D'Angelo Russell trade. Slowly but surely, the Nets are turning the corner. You can't really see it with that roster, but after they traded away Brook Lopez, they also got Damari Carroll from Toronto, Alan Crabb, who they signed to an offer sheet last summer, only to have it matched by the Trailblazers, and also they wound up getting Jarrett Allen, their number 1 draft pick from Texas.
That's the thing. The Nets are progressing better. The Knicks are getting progressively worse. Mm-hmm. Even though they signed to a 4-year contract that for $70 million, which I still to this day will not understand.
And that's another team. Believe it or not, they may have gone about it the wrong way, but you cannot blame them for being inactive because the Knicks were really active themselves. In addition to trading Carmelo, bringing back Tim Hardaway, in spite of the fact that they gave him
an undeserving contract.
You don't give a guy whose best season is 14 points per game, 4 years and $71 million. You just don't do it.
But then,
there's a reason why the Hawks decided not to match the offer.
And they draft Ntilikina from France.
I wouldn't sleep on Frank Ntilikina just yet. I mean, even in spite of the fact that he got himself hurt, first of all, if he's got his good health, he can really help them defensively. Plus, he's got a 7-foot wingspan as a point guard. So he can easily defend much smaller point guards on the court.
The only thing good about this team is Kristaps Porzingis. He is now the centerpiece of this team. Now that Carmelo's gone, he's the main focus of the team, where everything is built upon.
I will say this, though. Kristaps Porzingis and Enes Kanter, who they wound up getting for Anthony, and also Doug McDermott. Ntilikina, Damian Dotson, who they also drafted out of Houston, a really dangerous three-point shooter. Kanter, McDermott, Jarrett Jack, a veteran point guard. Ramon Sessions, another veteran who's going to be mentoring Ntilikina. That's six or seven, I think 9 newcomers that the Knicks wound up putting on their roster this year. It's going to look ugly, but at the same time, some of these young players that they have might be able to give them a little bit of hope. And watch out for Enes Kanter. They may make him the starting center. He is a really good low post center. He's really lazy defensively, but look for him to score a lot of points in the middle, and also look for the Knicks to use a really tall front line down the road with Porzingis and Kanter, maybe Doug McDermott as a small forward, maybe Frank Ntilikina as the point guard. So you could see not necessarily great defense, but at least a little bit of rim protection.
Without a doubt. And what about the Knicks this year, honestly, are probably going to miss the playoffs. I do not see
There's no probably about it, man. They're going to miss the playoffs.
This is a team that is rebuilding. But then again, people said that about the Yankees, and look what happened. Different story, different scenario.
That's apples and oranges right there, man. At least the Yankees have the luxury of a farm system and 162 games. What luxury do the Knicks have? The Westchester Knicks?
No, barf bags being handed out every single game.
How about paper bags that they can put over their heads?
Alcohol, because that's what this team drives their fans probably to drink. I'm not even kidding you. Every time if I watch a Knick game, I want to have a beer at my side so I can count for every time that they miss a basket.
Did you hear that really funny story about Fox Sports 1 putting some advertisements about the Knicks' upcoming season on the shuttle train going from East 42nd to West 42nd Street and vice versa? They had the likenesses, well, not likenesses, but they actually had players and their names on their seats, and there were messages on it that said, he's the reason why the Knicks are going to lose this season, or James Dolan has to sell the team, or words to that effect. And of course, when James Dolan heard about it, he got infuriated and he demanded that those advertisements be removed by Fox Sports.
Well, because anything that insults his inferiority complex, if that makes any sense. Anything that insults him, he doesn't like it. Even though it's the truth, he is one of the worst owners. Well, then again, I don't have to have you say it because I've heard you.
He's the single worst owner in the NBA right now. And that's saying a lot, considering there are guys like the guy that runs the Kings, Vivek Ranadive, considering the guy that runs the New Orleans Pelicans, or Mr. Prokhorov across the bridge in Brooklyn.
There's a difference, though. At least Prokhorov got a GM who has had experience in the San Antonio system.
And he's trying to build the team the right way, too. He got a coach, Kenny Atkinson, who he was very, very familiar with. That's number one. Number two, he's starting to put together a team in his own mold.
It's not, it's not the date. It's not anymore the BS that we've seen the last years from this team. We got an actual coach. They got an actual coach. They got the players that fit the mold, as opposed to the Knicks, who went through the Zen Masters era. And how did that work out for us? Not as well.
Failed miserably.
So right now, the Knicks are destined for another year of failure beyond belief. But I think Porzingis right now is going to have a huge active role. He doesn't have to have any more of the conflicts that he probably had with Melo, because there was no doubt they probably had personality clashes with each other.
Keep in mind, Carmelo Anthony was the one that frowned upon the Knicks being drafting Porzingis in the first place.
You're not going to find a true, and the fact that the Knicks were considering letting him go to Boston, you're not going to find a true four like him anywhere.
You can't find any type of player like him anywhere.
So
a guy who's 7'2" or 7'3" with a 7'4" wingspan, who can shoot the three, who can
defend the rim,
not necessarily defend the rim, but protect the rim. Guys like him come a dime a dozen.
I know. Well, now from basketball to WWE. Recently, they had Hell in a Cell, and in the kickoff, Benjamin is back.
Shelton Benjamin?
Yep. And
wow.
And Gable, of course, tag team together to beat the Hype Bros by pinfall in the kickoff match. Then the first Hell in a Cell match of the evening, the Usos defeated the New Day Rocks via.
You mean the New Day sucks?
Yeah, via pinfall. This was their fourth tag team championship for the Usos. Jimmy and Jay, who of course are the sons of Rikishi from that Anoa'i clan family. But you have to give up to the New Day and the Usos. This was one of the best Hell in a Cell matches I've seen, especially tag team. A lot of brutality in this match. Then Randy Orton defeated Rusev in one of the most lackluster matches of the evening via the RKO. Triple threat match for the U.S. title. Baron Corbin won his first title, defeating Ty Dillinger, the Perfect 10, and AJ Styles, who was the champion at the time, via pinfall. Baron Corbin was able to just take advantage of what AJ Styles did to Ty Dillinger, because, in a triple threat match, if you don't hurt anybody and somebody else does, you can take advantage of that situation.
Yep.
And Baron did that. This women's tag title match, Charlotte defeated Natalya. And this was a match between two women from two great wrestling families, if you think about it. And I'm so happy to hear that Charlotte's father, Ric Flair, is in better spirits right now.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it was a DQ she won by. And because of that, titles cannot change hands. I wish they get rid of that rule, honestly. WWE title championship match. Jinder Mahal defeated Shinsuke Nakamura with the Kalash. This was one of the worst title matches I've ever seen. But then then Bobby Roode, you ever hear a song, Glorious?
Yeah, I actually heard it on YouTube just the other day.
I really like that. That gets you pumped up, that song.
Bobby Roode, of course, used to be with the former TNA, which is now known as Global Impact Wrestling, and was really good for Global Impact for a time.
And he defeated Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler is trying this new thing where he doesn't have any theme music. He just comes out as himself because he's a baby, apparently, or acting like a brat. And then the best ever, Falls Count Anywhere, Hell in a Cell match, Shane McMahon and Kevin Owens. I have to give this to Shane. This guy does not know the word fear at all. It's not in his vocabulary. And he, unfortunately, went from the top of the roof like he's done so many times.
Hasn't he ever learned?
No, and he didn't this time.
Oh, brother.
And he was trying to land on top of Kevin Owens on one of the announcers' tables, but out of nowhere comes his best friend, Sami Zayn, pulls Kevin Owens from the table just in time. Shane misses Kevin Owens by just a few seconds and lands on the table, and unfortunately had to be taken out on a stretcher into the nearby hospital because of what happened.
Yep.
These guys were on the top of the steel cage doing things to each other where people were nervous. I thought at one point the steel cage was going to collapse or break apart in the top, and they were going to fall heavily.
Yep.
You held your breath, but Kevin Owens at the end won by pinfall.
Well, on a side note in WWE, all I can say is I am so happy to see The Shield back together again. They made their triumphant comeback together as a team on the most recent Raw, where they basically beat Braun Strowman to death.
What I loved was the famous powerbomb, where basically Roman Reigns gets him up, and both Dean and Seth each place their hand on each side of the body and simultaneously slam whoever they're trying to through the table, and they did to Braun. And this week is TLC, the next pay-per-view for Raw. Tables, ladders, chairs. Alexa Bliss is defending her title against the legendary 7-time winner, Mickie James.
Wow. Speaking of comebacks, I see Mickie James, who was ladies champion of yesteryear, is now back in the fold. Great to see her working once again.
And then Asuka is making her WWE main roster debut in a match against Emma. If you've seen Asuka at NXT, this girl has pizzazz. She's fast. She's furious with her legs, like most of the Japanese athletes, which is called strong style. If you watch Shinsuke Nakamura and a lot of the Japanese athletes, they really know how to use their legs and in such destructive ways.
Yep.
So she's going to be a force to be reckoned with in the women's division. And then Kalisto, who is now the new cruiserweight champion.
Good for him.
Going up against Enzo Mori.
Yep.
Enzo was actually won the title over Neville by doing a crotch shot and then pinning Neville to win the title. Enzo has been this brutish, garish guy, but yet he's the guy who got the cruiserweights in the main event of Raw the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yes, he may be over the top. Yes, he sometimes talks a lot. If you notice him, he never knows when not to run his mouth. But he gets the fans to love and hate him simultaneously. He's that type of guy. He's entertaining, and he's mystifying and stupid at times. Yeah. It's amazing. And Enzo is getting his rematch because, you know, that's in the clause. And then a 4-on-3 handicap TLC match. The 4 members are Braun Strowman, The Miz, Cesaro, and Sheamus versus The Shield.
4-on-3, huh?
Yep.
To be honest with you, I put all my money on The Shield.
Yeah. They can have 5 people on them, and it wouldn't matter. Because you got Dean Ambrose, who does not care.
So unpredictable is Dean Ambrose. That's why he's such a really dangerous draw for an opponent, because you really don't know what this guy is capable of. You know what you're going to get from Roman Reigns. You know you're going to get power. You know you're going to get quickness. The same thing with Seth Rollins. You know what you're going to get with him.
He's a tactician. That's the thing about Seth.
A real tactician.
In the ring. He's very strategic with a lot of his moves. He knows when to go in for the big kill. Dean, yeah, he's unpredictable. In fact, if I have one of his T-shirts, you know what it says? Unstable. Right there, that explains it. And Roman is probably the most polarizing figure who, no matter where he goes, he gets booed loudly.
Yeah.
But I think because now he's with Dean and Seth, I think the boos are going to be less.
Hopefully they'll die down a little bit.
Yeah.
And, you know, you mentioned Charlotte and Ric Flair earlier. Lately, ESPN has featured a lot of WWE wrestlers on some of their shows. Now I'm starting to wonder why. Now I know why. It's because next month, ESPN is going to do a 30 for 30 story about Ric Flair.
Which is deservedly so. He's one of the most iconic figures in WWE history. The only person to be inducted into the Hall of Fame twice, as an individual and with the 4 Horsemen. So, and he's won the championship a record 16 times, which I think was just tied up by John Cena, another great wrestler who I heard is contemplating retirement.
Yeah, that wouldn't really surprise me when you think about it, because Cena has gone through so many rough and rugged matches. There's been so much wear and tear on his body that naturally there's going to come a time when he's going to have to try and call it a career. Not only that, but he's not necessarily getting any younger either.
And now he's having a career transition. He's now trying to do what The Rock did with his career, go into movies and television.
He's definitely got the charisma and the look for it, because he's already done The Marine. He's already done a show for Fox.
Trainwreck.
Yep.
Which was
actually he's done 3 movies that I've known about: Trainwreck, The Marine, and another movie which, ironically enough, had to do with wrestling.
And he did a movie actually with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler recently, where he played a tough guy with tattoos. Believe me, he's being heavily featured in a lot of movies and I think animated films too. And he does host, you know, he's on the Today Show occasionally.
Yep.
His soon-to-be fiance is actually on Dancing with the Stars, Nikki Bella, and he's doing reality TV. So he has a lot of interest in different areas. So he has a lot to look forward to post-wrestling than other wrestlers sometimes, you know, that don't get as many of those opportunities. And right now, Brock Lesnar, we haven't heard anything yet because he's probably in hibernation at the moment. But at some point, he'll come out, and everybody's going to get a big laugh and draw, like, yeah, he's here for 2-3 months.
Yeah.
But, getting more paid than the person who actually puts his body on the line every day. Sorry.
Now, as far as what's going on in the NFL, we have 5.5 minutes to discuss what happened over the weekend. All I can tell you is the Jets got robbed. Yes, they got robbed.
24-17.
And the Giants surprised a lot of people. Now, let's see if the Giants can sustain their momentum after a rather dominating defensive performance against the Broncos yesterday, where Jason Pierre-Paul wound up getting 3 sacks of Trevor Siemian, and the Giant D also forced 3 turnovers against Siemian as well.
2 big interceptions.
2 picks against Trevor Siemian
4
in yesterday's
sacks.
game.
It was unbelievable. It was night and day, and not only that, the injuries mounting for Denver. Not having Emmanuel Sanders and limping Demaryius Thomas. And
so much for the Eli Manning trade rumors, huh? He was being rumored to go to the Packers and to the Jaguars. I think you can put all of that to rest right now. Eli made it loud and clear himself. He's not going anywhere. Even if he were, who would afford him? Have you seen his contract?
It's
next year and the year after. He's making $45 million.
All right, I'm going to give you guys the football blitz. Saints and their defense, along with Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, defeated the Detroit Lions 52-38. The Lions tried scoring 4 straight points at the very end, but couldn't do it. Now, the Packers, unfortunately, lost Aaron Rodgers to a broken collarbone hit in the first half by Anthony
And he's going to
Barr.
undergo surgery later in the week. He's now possibly out for the rest of the season.
And Jerick McKinnon had 2 big touchdowns on the ground through the air. Yeah, the Vikings beat the Packers 23-10. The Browns got their tails handed to them by the Texans 33-17. Deshaun Watson had 3 touchdowns. First time ever to have 3 straight games with at least 3 TDs for a rookie in NFL history, and 15 touchdowns already in 6 weeks of this young season. The Bears beat the Ravens 27-24 on the Connor Barth 40-yard field goal with 2:08 left in overtime. The Dolphins defeated the Falcons 2017, including a pair of Cody Parkey late field goals, and unfortunately the big interception by Cordrea Tankersley off of Matt Ryan.
Huge win for the Dolphins there.
The Steelers come up with a huge 51-yard touchdown to Antonio Brown, beating the Chiefs 19-13.
Biggest win of the year for the Steelers so far.
And no unbeaten teams left in the season. Now the Buccaneers lost James Winston to a shoulder injury and lost to the Cardinals 38-33. Adrian Peterson, great debut, including a 2-touchdown, 134-yard rushing performance and a 27-yard touchdown on the first offensive play.
Yo, Adrian.
Definitely. Yo, Adrian, I did it. The Chargers beat the Raiders 17-16 on the Nick Novak 32-yard field goal, and Giorgio Tavecchio, the place kicker for the Raiders, missed an extra point.
Break up the Chargers. What's going on with them? After 4 losses in a row, 2 wins in a row?
I know. And how about 2 wins in a row for the Raiders and 4 losses in a row? That's just it's a parallel universe. Mm-hmm. The Rams beat the Jaguars 27-17. Pharaoh Cooper gets an opening kickoff 103-yard rushing touchdown. Give it up to Leonard Fournette, 130 yards on the ground, including a 75-yard rushing touchdown.
Right.
7 on the season.
He's right up there with Kareem Hunt for Rookie of the Year right now.
The Redskins just barely beat the 49ers 26-24 with 2 touchdowns by Kirk Cousins. They nearly blew a 17-point lead. C.J. Beathard came in to replace Brian Hoyer for the 49ers. Had a better performance than Hoyer, who went 4 of 11 for 34 yards, but Beathard 19 of 36 in his first NFL action. And the New York Jets, as we mentioned, lost.
Robbed. They didn't lose. They were robbed. A so-called fumble in the end zone. First of all, you saw the replay. There was no fumble. There was a momentary double clutch of the ball by Austin Safarian-Jenkins, and he crossed the pylon and the goal line of the end zone with the ball in his hands. There was no fumble.
And on top of that, the turnover at the end of the first half that led to the game-tying touchdown to Gronkowski. 2 big touchdowns to Gronk in this game.
You just don't give the Patriots opportunities like those because they're going to cash in.
And pass interference penalties, too, that hurt the Jets. And on top of that, the fact that they had a turnover, too, did not help as well. So they lost 24-17 to the Pats. The Pats now have control of the AFC East. The Jets right now are going to be at Miami this coming Sunday, while the Giants will be at home late afternoon against the Seahawks. 2 very good games. Mm-hmm. I think if the Jets want to win, they got to stop J.J. in the ground, who had 130 yards yesterday in the 2017 win over Atlanta. And if the Dolphins win, keep running the ball and also get the Jets off guard with their tight end, Julius Thomas. As for the Giants, they got to be able to predict Wilson, which is not easy to do. And if the Giants want to win as well, defense. As for the Seahawks, just the defense is, especially Richard Sherman, let's see how he guards Evan Ingram or helps in that regard.
Yep. That's officially going to do it for us, folks. Thanks to Kenny, who just snuck back into the other side of the glass. For everyone here, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Eric.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend, folks.
We'll
And enjoy the rest of the week. Good night.
Good night. Good night, Sally.